Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, the show that is part of the Simply Luxurious Life online destination. Visit the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com, to find the show notes for each podcast episode, as well as much more weekly content to elevate your everyday and deepen your contentment. From recipes, motivational posts, videos of the cooking show series, style and decor inspiration, French and British inspired content, and the reader's favorite regular weekly post, This and That, which goes live on the blog every Friday. Now to today's episode. Welcome to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. I'm your host, Shannon Abels. And whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, or sitting down with a hot cup of tea or a café au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 308th episode of The Simple Sophisticate. And welcome to summer here in the Northern Hemisphere. We are kicking off a new season today, or kind of yesterday on the 20th, and then into the 21st, 22nd, as we know. But I thought, what better episode or focus of today's episode than one that really puts us in the mood for summer. We're going to talk about ways to welcome Provençal style into your home and garden, inspired by a brand new book that has just been released, and I have had the opportunity to review it. But before I get to that, this week's Petit Plaisir is also going to take us to Europe. It's a film I recently watched, and I highly recommend. I think you will enjoy as well. So what are we talking about today? Well, 10 years of visiting, followed by 3 years of construction and refurbishing, and now Shauna Varvel's family Provençal Mas, situated just outside of Avignon, France, is an exquisite Provençal destination to see both inside and out, and it has inspired largely this episode. Feasting first on the thoughtfully designed and decorated property through Instagram, beginning, I think, for myself in 2018, I continued to follow her as the property named Le Mas des Poiriers, which means pear tree, as well as serving as a family home for her and her husband, their adult children, and growing grandchildren, is also now available for rent, although likely for the most elite due to the price point, which is understandable based on the expansive grounds and thoughtful decor in so many rooms. Now, the house was featured in Veranda's April 2019 issue, and inspiration abounds whether or not you or I will ever be able to visit it and see it with our own eyes. But if we cannot see it with our own eyes, she now has a new book titled Provence Style, Decorating with French Country Flair. And it was released earlier this month, this June 2021, and it is what is inspiring today's episode. With, as I said, today being the first day of summer, I thought what better way to celebrate this ideal season during which to visit Provence than by dedicating today's episode entirely to welcoming in Provençal decor and garden ideas into our home and lives wherever we may call home. If you are looking for inspiration, visual inspiration, as well as a historical exploration of the design styles associated with Provence, Varvel's book, Provence Style, is a book you will appreciate and find incredibly resourceful. It is full of photos. Now, there are more photos times 4 or 5 than there is text, but her text is well researched. She goes into the history of the textiles, of the different ideas that bounce into your and I's mind when we think about Provence. And the images are largely from her house. There are a handful from others, but it is primarily from her house. And it is truly, your eyes are going to just be engaged constantly. It's full of expansive room photos, but also close-up vignettes. Truly beautiful book. I have gone through it. I've gathered up 15 ideas for adding a touch or a wealth of Provençal decor inspiration to our sanctuaries, and I'd like to share those with you today. So let's dive into this list of 15 ways to welcome Provençal style into your home and garden. Number 1 is to welcome in the natural light and do so in abundance. Open the curtains, pull up the shades or open the shades. If you are in the middle of designing a space or choosing a home or an apartment to live in, choose one with oodles of windows and preferably south facing if you're in the northern hemisphere, or north facing if you're in the southern hemisphere. Obviously along with east, west, and north, but southern exposure or northern exposure, depending on which hemisphere you're in, has the most immense amount of light that you then can play with your curtains, your shutters, your blinds, whatever you have. Natural light works magic on the beauty of an interior space, and Provence is all about the sun and the minstrel clear blue skies, painted and appreciated by artists for years. In other words, treat your windows with curtains or shutters or shades, but never forget to open them when the sun is out. That's number one, something that we can work with that's there for free, natural light. Number two is to add earthenware to your decor and dining experiences. The quote I want to share with you is, again, all the quotes that I share with you today are from the book to exemplify each of these points. Varvel shares, established in Marseille in the late 17th century, the earthenware industry in Provence gave rise to names such as Saint Jean du Désert and Fauchère, known for their exceptional blue and white faience glazes. End quote. From large jugs and handmade pieces of pottery to plates for dining or plates for wall decor, earthenware is quintessential Provence. Begin gathering a collection, use the jugs as vases, used for functional purposes in the kitchen or at the dining table. Find them at flea markets, brocantes, online or secondhand stores. And when you do, a touch of Provence will be seen and felt. Now, one market that Varvel shares that she went to quite frequently, because it's about 30 miles away from where her home is at, is Ile-sur-la-Sorgue. And I do highly recommend going to it. I had the opportunity to go to it. It's open every Sunday. It's probably the second largest brocante in the country, aside from the ones in Paris. And there's a farmer's market there. So not to be confused, when you go there, if you just see the farmer's market, then just keep walking around the canal. You'll find the brocantes, and there's a ton of them. And it is a lot of fun. And in fact, I remember going there from the recommendation of Patricia Wells and the individuals that I went to my cooking class with. And guess who I saw there? I saw Patricia Wells and Walter Wells finding their own treasures. In fact, they were actually purchasing an earthenware jug, a large, beautiful earthenware jug. And, she just kept filling her house with little touches of Provence. And she's been living there for almost 40 years. So, wherever you find them, whether you can travel to France or not, online, Etsy or Rabbit Hill, French lifestyle blog, on her pop-up shops that she has monthly, adding this little touch is just, it adds a layer of history. It adds a layer of something that's timeless. And it keeps it more down to earth, to not use it as a pun, but the earthenware is a must if you're trying to bring in Provençal style into your house. So that's number two. Number three is mind the door and window hardware, as well as custom millwork details and ironwork. The details matter in any home. And when it comes to Provençal style, swap out the modern for the traditional. From knobs to closures to staircase handrails and drawer pulls, seemingly small yet certainly significant, these details make a big difference. Sometimes they're really inexpensive, but sometimes you might have to invest. But those little details really do finish a room. And it's something to keep in mind if you're trying to include them in any style. But with regards to Provençal style, those details, look for what would be traditional Provence. Number four is to provide direct and easy access, which is inviting and encouraging as well, to outdoor spaces and to the garden. Provence is all about the outdoors, eating seasonally, working with the weather. And yes, the minstrels are a real thing. And while clearing the sky to keep that pristine blue, as well as cooling you down during the summer season, they can be fiercely aggressive in the fall and winter. So provide access to the outdoors with ease. We'll talk more about exactly how to design the outdoor spaces in a later point, but keep your kitchen garden close to the door that is nearest the kitchen. Create inviting sitting areas outside under the vines and the trees for people to keep cool, and perhaps invest in a door or screen door which lets the outdoors in, reminding you to step outside and enjoy the warmth. So number four is provide direct and easy access to outdoor spaces and the garden. 5, those traditional hexagonal terracotta flooring tiles. Here's a quote from Shauna. A distinctively Provençal floor material that is characteristic of most houses in southwest France, known as tomates des Salins. These quintessentially local tiles have historically been made in the villages of Salnères from the red iron-filled clay of that area. During the 19th century, terracotta tile production was prolific, with tomates exported throughout Europe and Africa. End quote. I can remember seeing my first terracotta hexagonal floor in the vacation rental that I enjoyed staying in while traveling in the Luberon region. It was a 2-story villa that had been completely refurbished, and it was in this little hamlet near Gourds. And I will provide a link to the tour of the home. It's beautiful. Check it out. The owners are from Amsterdam, and they just thoughtfully kept the integrity of this building, but also added some modern touches, which is really quintessential Provence. That's what we'll talk about here in the next point number 6. But the hexagon floor covered the entire bathroom. And it just dazzled me, primarily because of its history. And I was actually being in that region of France where this tile was made. But no matter what the color scheme is, this style, this terracotta color, it actually is a neutral. It's timeless, and it is classic Provence. So that's number 5. Number 6 is strike a balance. Quote, carefully judged contrast between rusticity and gentility, modesty and opulence, the democratic and the aristocratic, are the signature of the contemporary provincial home, end quote. Here is where time and travel and exploration create the expertise of knowing what that balance is. Knowing how to strike the balance of opulence and rustic is not initially simple to do, but with intention and time, you will find it eventually becomes instinctive. You just see it and you know. Provincial homes no more adhere to entirely one aesthetic. Everything must be country chic, for example. Then France is a country of singular flavors. No. While staying in my first vacation rental in Provence in 2018, I stayed in this 4-story home in the medieval ville of Vaison-la-Romaine, and it included a centuries-worn stone staircase from the bottom to the top. And it was completely indented in the middle of the staircase all the way up, and it had been there for centuries. This was literally built on Roman ruins, this ville, this medieval village. And it had iron railings. It had classic artwork inspired by the time of the Renaissance, as well as simple floral bed linens, linen curtains, and a modern bathroom. So it was mixing and matching function and beauty, a touch of the present with fond inclusion of the past. And that's where striking the balance is going to be unique to the place that you live, wherever you are in the world, if you're trying to bring in that style. But it's staying away from just sticking to one type of style, because that's what makes it, that one note is the issue. You've got to build basically a harmony of multiple ideas. And for Provence, provincial style, it is the rustic country, but then it's that, opulent elegance as well that France has. So it's finding that balance. Moving on to number 7, know the objective of furniture selection and placement. Varvel writes, the guiding principle, quote, is to generate an impression of artlessness, though this requires thoughtful consideration of scale, comfort, design detail, and choice of upholstery. Look for vintage furniture, yet reupholster it with preferred fabric and restructure the pieces to create the desired comfort. Layers work as well, soft and hard, some but not too much. Don't clutter, but don't be a minimalist. Creating seating areas to sit, relax, and be. Design with the eye of the guests in mind. What will they be drawn to? Let one item sing in a room, and the others will just complement it. Include upholstered items in every room, but not every piece need be upholstered. This is really covering the fundamental or foundational design elements, no matter what the aesthetic is. But now you'll let the other items on today's list guide you for what items that you need to include in this space. So it's really back to number 6, finding the balance when it comes to your furniture selections and their placement as well. All right. I have a few sponsors that are making this episode possible, so I'm going to introduce you to them. But when I come back, we're going to go over the remaining 8 ways to welcome Provençal style into your home and garden. I'll be right back. Pride is a time to celebrate all things LGBTQ+. But pride also means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. That's why this year, Bombas is choosing to be proud in every way. Of your sexuality, your gender, your culture. All the things that have shaped your unique pride. And they're doing it with a new collection of colorful clothing inspired by all the different experiences that make up the LGBTQ+ community. There's something for everyone in this collection. Want socks inspired by different pride flags? Bombas made some. Or maybe you're looking for a super soft striped rainbow shirt, which they also made. My personal favorite are the vintage striped socks. They have a little bit of an ankle to them with rainbow stripes, and well, their socks are great. Like I said before, I love wearing their socks. They last and they help me do whatever I love to do outside. And they also have a Pride Bombas canvas tote, which looks fantastic. The Bombas Pride collection is also designed to give back. For every clothing item you purchase, another item will be donated to someone affected by homelessness in the LGBTQ+ community. Homelessness disproportionately affects the entire LGBTQ+ population, but people of color and transgender individuals within the community are even more at risk for it. That's why each donation will be going to one of 3 organizations working specifically with transgender and bi people of color communities. As a Simple Sophisticate listener, you have the opportunity to shop the entire collection and learn more about the organizations your purchase will be supporting. Visit bombas.com/sophisticate and use code sophisticate to get 20% off your first order. That's bombas, bombas.com/sophisticate. The Simple Sophisticate is also sponsored by BetterHelp. If there is anything that is interfering with your happiness, BetterHelp is there to help. You can start communicating in under 48 hours with a licensed professional at any time, all without ever having to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if needed. The service is available for clients worldwide, and they have licensed professional counselors who specialize in a variety of areas, from relationships to depression, stress, anger, LGBTQ+ matters, self-esteem, trauma, and much more. Everything you share is confidential. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. Start living a happier life today. As a listener of the Simple Sophisticate podcast, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting the show's sponsor at betterhelp.com/simple. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/simple. The Simple Sophisticate is also sponsored by Southern Tide. With summer comes this desire to want to dress up a bit, even if in cool, comfortable clothing. Southern Tide is a lifestyle apparel brand that offers the best of both worlds, comfort and style. Many of the fabrics they use also offer performance features such as sun protection and moisture management, so they can handle the outdoors as well. Speaking of outdoors, they just launched their Red, White, and Tide collection, which is just in time for the summer holidays. If you're looking for a gift for yourself or for the upcoming 4th of July weekend, if you're celebrating here in the States, then they have you covered. And the best part is Southern Tide is offering a special 20% off discount for all Simple Sophisticate listeners. Just use the promo code SIMPLE20 to receive 20% off your order. I have the opportunity to use and wear their flip-flops. They are incredibly comfortable and they look great. So visit southerntide.com and use the promo code SIMPLE20 for 20% off your next order. Welcome back. Let's dive right into the remaining 8 items on how to welcome Provence style into your home and garden. Number 8 is plaster finish for the walls. Provence is quite hot in the summer, but very much a geography which beckons you to be outside nearly the entire year, even though they do have all 4 seasons. Quote, plaster finished walls are a common trait of the mas, or these homes that you find in the Provençal countryside. When overlaid with lime wash, the lime sinks into the plaster, giving it a luminous and patina distinct from that of a conventionally painted wall. Now, Varvel goes on to share that she chose a custom mix of lime wash and chose a flat finish to match the tone of the limestone floors in order to create a sense of unity and openness. It really does create a larger look to the eye, and then it lets the furniture or whatever's in that room sing without being too much. And nearly every room has a window that opens up to the garden or a door that opens up to the garden or multiple ones. And it's this color that natural light comes in and bounces off of. It just creates a really beautiful interior. So that's this color, this use of the plaster finish for the walls and that lime wash is working with Mother Nature as well. So you're not going to see wallpaper in Provence as we would see in the English countryside because they don't need to keep it warm, which is what the wallpaper does, right? So you have this coolness about it, but also this softness and this welcoming aesthetic as well. So that's number 8. Number 9 is restrained elegance. Well, yes, a rural locale, Provence has a rich and lengthy history stretching back to the Romans who, quote, conquered the Greek colonists who had introduced grapevines and olives and also built the port of Massilia, later known as Marseille. This city would be instrumental in infusing provincial living with a sense of opulence. This is the component of her book that I really appreciate. Maybe it's the history teacher in me coming out. She goes into the history of where these trends, what we would call trends then, but they've stayed, they're part of the traditional Provençal style, where they came from. Quote, a culture of contrast, merging bucolic bliss with bourgeois aspirations, rural tradition with refinement, rustic crafts with luxury, end quote. So what does restrained elegance look like in a provincial mas or home? Well, there's a bunch of photos in her book, but let me just walk you through verbally what some of those might be. Opulent chandeliers over a table covered in a simple linen tablecloth with fresh flowers from the garden lined up in a row down the middle of the table. Or ornate gold frame mirrors set in front of a vintage upholstered armchair. Or carefully laid table settings, silverware, multiple glasses and plates with an open window framed with modern fabric for the curtains which stretch all the way to the floor. Or bare floors of limestone covered only occasionally with an antique wool rug. So it's this restrained, it's not everywhere, this elegance, but it's present and it's balanced with more rustic country touches. So that's number 9. Number 10 are sunflowers. Brilliant in late June and early July in Provence. The sunflowers, as you drive about the countryside, will, if you are like me, successfully tempt you to stop the car and take pictures. Now, never mind that sunflowers are ubiquitous in this region, and likely you will find more around the next bend in the road, but still, their beauty draws a breath of awe each time. Plant them yourself in your own garden, wherever you live. I planted my first sunflowers last year here at Le Papillon, and I found, because I planted some directly into the ground, and I planted some into seed containers in a warm area in the house. And I found that these sunflowers are pretty hardy little beans. And so direct sowing works the best. They really don't need much water. And by August, I had giants, smiley giants framed in yellow, standing guard around my property. And this year, I directly sowed all of the 3 different pouches of seeds that I had. I sowed them directly into the ground in May, I believe in mid-May, early May, mid-May. So this is well before our last frost. And I even have some self-planting. So they found their home there. I did not put them here in this place along the front path to my porch. And my neighbors have been planting sunflowers since I moved into the neighborhood, and they sowed them well before the last frost. So I think they sowed them in early April. And currently they have an alley of sunflowers that are about 4 feet tall, and they still have a long ways to go as far as growth, and they're doing fantastically. So you can bring a small touch, a significant touch of Provence to your garden or into a pot on your patio or your porch. And come August and September, you're going to have lovely sunflowers. And they're all different sizes too. So whatever you would like. That's number 10. Number 11, in last Friday's This and That post, I shared a link to a particular article from Homes and Gardens from the UK, and it contained 30 plus ideas for styling your own French country inspired kitchen. And one of the many recommendations I have welcomed into my own home and kitchen is a rack full of copper pans above the stove that are actually used, but they just provide a stunning rustic yet sophisticated focal point in the kitchen. And if you're a top tier subscriber, you can tour my kitchen and see all of the different touches of France, because this is primarily a French kitchen. I mean, I have a French stove, and I wanted the copper because I have a handful of copper pieces. I wanted to have those easily accessible. But this idea of bringing copper in, you can buy all sorts of different copper now, brand new, but you can always find so much copper at the Provence, secondhand, online. I was amazed at how inexpensive it was when I was in France. It will be more expensive being here in the States, but if you ever have the opportunity to travel to France, you'll find that it's quite inexpensive for the most part, and it will last you your lifetime. So that's, again, that quality over quantity. Invest and you will save in the end. So that's number 11. Welcome copper into your kitchen. Number 12 are baskets. From rustic to new, large, medium, or small, in all different styles. Baskets about the home are a functional touch that also looks wonderful from a decorating perspective. I recently picked up a few baskets for my own home during Rabbit Hill's French Lifestyle online pop-up shop, and I've linked to her site on the show notes. She lives in northern France, and she has a monthly pop-up, and she sells copper, refurbished copper. She sells baskets. She sells items for the kitchen. She sells pottery and ceramics, all these things that she herself finds at Provence. And I highly recommend checking it out. And I've also found that, welcoming different market baskets into your home, while highly functional treasures, are beautiful when put on display. And in fact, I wrote a post titled Find Your Perfect Provençal Market Tote. And I've linked to it on the show notes if you want to check it out. And that picture that's in the show notes are actually two totes that I found in Provence. And that's actually the staircase of the rental that I stayed at in the Golden Triangle there in the Luberon, if you want to check it out. But, there's all sorts of them over in France at different markets. It's definitely something you have so many choices to make. So figure out what works best for you: single strap, double strap, long, short strap, and then the size that works best for you and the style. Once you find what you like, they really are something that you'll find you're using quite frequently, especially if you go to markets. All right, and I've also brought in a picture from my mudroom. I made sure to have my markets displayed in my mudroom, and you'll see them in the mudroom's picture here. You can tour the whole mudroom and get sources for all the different details if you want it. You'll have to become a top tier subscriber to view that tour, but at least you'll have the picture there to get you started. All right, so that's number 12, bring in baskets. 13 is a love of cloth, especially indies, INDIENNES. Originally imported colorful Indian chintzes, which had small repeating motifs of flora and fauna. They served as bed hangings, they served as bed curtains, drapes, and bedspreads, as well as clothing. This type of fabric is especially well associated with Provence. And also there are other cottons that depict scenes from nature, as well as stripes and ginghams that have come to epitomize the Provençal decor. So all these little touches, making sure you do have fabric, number one, and being thoughtful about bringing it in creates that feel, that aesthetic. So that's number 13. Number 14 let's talk about gardens for a little bit. Have a garden full of herbs for cooking, medicinal purposes, and exquisite fragrance for the home. Beginning with lavender, as it's the most immediate herb that comes to mind when Provence is mentioned. Did you know that it also, while scenting the air, repels flies and mosquitoes? Sure does. As well as many other herbs, be sure to welcome an abundance of basil. As Varvel shares, quote, it is also a natural insect repellent and has been an essential in the Provençal kitchen garden for more than 1,000 years. So all the more reason to bring more basil into your garden. Place in the ground your herbs or in pots just outside your kitchen for easy access while you're cooking, and welcome oodles of fresh flavor to your meals. Now I have to share really quickly a little plug here for my cooking show, The Simply Luxurious Kitchen. It's focused on seasonal fare to elevate the everyday meal, and our 4th season will debut this September, the second Saturday, which is Saturday, September 11th. And there are 3 previous seasons. You can check them out either on the blog, you can check them out on YouTube, or even on Apple Podcasts. And I've linked to all of that on today's show notes. And that's what we do. We focus on seasonal fare and herbs and using those simple flavor components to really elevate the meal. All right, last but not least is 15. Create natural shade in the garden and outdoors. Quote, the Provençal garden gives shade with plantings of plane, chestnut, pine, cypress, evergreen, oak, drought-resistant blackberry, and fruit trees, especially olive, fig, apricot, peach, and plum. End quote. Varvel shares the many artists who would work en plein air in Provence and which trees appeared in their paintings along with the sunflowers which captured Van Gogh and Cézanne's admiration. Needless to say, Provençal style cannot be what it is without the outdoors or the honoring of the outdoors with the welcoming in of fresh flowers, floral and fauna prints, and the opening of windows to let the fresh air dance about the home. If you have an outdoor living space, no matter how small, a balcony, a porch, create a space which beckons you to sit, relax, and take many deep breaths of appreciation. In other words, be present. The reason I shared this last one as the last one, so creating natural shade in the garden and outdoors, is because all of these components are meant to create the opportunity to slow down and savor more than anything. And I'll provide a post that I wrote back in 2018, 10 life lessons from Provence, slow down and savor the everyday, which is one of the more popular posts of the blog. Creating a home and a garden that's inspired by Provence is to say that you want to incorporate the lifestyle component into your life. And that means the pace, the presence, and the quality. It's about really living in the now, in the moment, slowing down. And when we create these spaces outdoors, no matter how small, we're acknowledging that we're in the world, that we're of the world. We're not just inside. And we're part of Mother Nature. We're appreciating Mother Nature, whether it's simply by taking in the air or eating something from the garden or from the farmer's market that we picked up. So consider how to create, a space outdoors in any way you can that beckons you to sit outside and enjoy the day or the night or the morning, whatever it might be. And to conclude today's episode, I want to, more than anything, I want to echo what Shauna Varvel shares in her introduction of her book. And this is going to reiterate what I've just spoken about. But this lifestyle Provence, it rejuvenates. It gently yet assuredly nudges us to slow down and be present and never rushes us to hurry to the next thing. Taking in the sights, taking in the tastes, and savoring the seasonal beauty, Provence living is peaceful living. The markets run year-round. The attire need only be comfortable as you need your skin to breathe and your body to move. As you walk about and around the many medieval towns and villages, life in Provence is living well and savoring the everyday. When we create a home to encourage us to embody these qualities, no matter where we call home, our lives change for the better. You can visit today's show notes on the simplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 308. I have one more sponsor I want to introduce you to, and then this week's Petit Plaisir. I'll be right back. Woodstock chimes were the first wind chimes tuned to specific notes, changing the industry forever from looks pretty and makes noise to looks pretty and sounds amazing. A Grammy Award-winning professional musician, Gary Kipstad, is the founder and owner of Woodstock chimes, known as finely tuned musical instruments played by the wind. In business for over 40 years, they have sold their wind chimes in 50 states and around the world. Music and sound can be healing and contribute to holistic living, lowering stress levels, increasing creative focus, and making us more productive. The company also offers table chimes, fountains, bells, sun catchers, and wind chimes that enhance lives everywhere from city apartments to country homes. A sneak peek at something coming this summer is Moonlight Sonata Chime, tuned to notes from the beloved piece by Beethoven. Having the opportunity to listen to my own Woodstock chimes, I can attest the sound, the music, the notes are melodic, peaceful, and truly tuned to soothe. Listeners of the Simple Sophisticate podcast get 15% off by going to chimes.com and using the promo code SIMPLE. That's Woodstock Chimes, the world's favorite wind chime. Go to chimes.com and get 15% off your next order when you use the promo code SIMPLE. This week's Petit Plaisir is a documentary that I have been wanting to watch for quite a few months, but either the theaters were still closed or it wasn't streaming it wasn't streaming. They didn't put it on streaming. It was only available in theaters. And finally the theaters have opened up here in Bend. And so this last weekend, I went to a local boutique theater and I saw The Truffle Hunters. Now this film is set in Piedmont, Italy. It is a documentary that showcases a handful of men in their 70s and 80s alongside their beloved and cherished dogs. They hunt, and successfully so, the treasured white Alba truffle. Now, this film began at several different film festivals and is now being shown, as I said, in theaters internationally. It is entirely in Italian, with English subtitles or whatever subtitles you need. I think there is one instance where one of the individuals says the word garlic in English as he's speaking to his daughter, simply to talk about what that word means in English. And they're talking about the scent of a truffle. And the videography is beautiful. They'll show wide, broad expanses of the countryside there in Piedmont as the hunter is out in the field, just going through the forest with their dog. And then you'll have a super close-ups of their everyday life. You'll also have a few footages of dogs with the cameras on them. So you get to be at ground level with the workers, so to speak, the ones that enable them to find the truffles. It just shows a slow pace of life which each man lives and enjoys along this reality of the trials that a truffle hunter such as themselves have had to go through. And there's some very aggressive and painful tactics that outsiders employ that have no respect for Mother Nature or the dogs. And it's just, it's clear that these truffle hunters that are given the spotlight truly appreciate the opportunity they have, the gifts that they have. They're not giving up their secrets about where to hunt. They're not going to give up. They're never going to sell their dogs. This one gentleman, just to give a glimpse, this one gentleman says, it's because someone offered him to pay, they offered to pay him money for his dog. And he said, do you have children? And the guy says, yes, I do. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to go to the bank and I'm going to pull out 50,000 euros and then I'll buy your children. And of course the gentleman's like, no, you can't do that. He's like, that's the point. These dogs are my children. They're priceless. You cannot have them. Of course. So that endeared me to this film even more. So this film is really an advocacy for what each of these spotlighted truffle hunters do alongside the talent of their dogs. And it will hopefully deepen the appreciation for those who are out in the forest and doing so with respect of Mother Nature and the dogs who make their hunts successful. Go to the theater. Forget about time. Enjoy this film, not only in its storytelling, but its videography. I think you'll enjoy it. I've included the trailer, so you can take a listen to that. Here it is, although it is all in Italian, but just the gist of it, I think, will be conveyed. And just to give some context, this trailer begins with one of the truffle hunters' wife who is seeking him. He's in his 80s, he's almost 90, and she is constantly calling for him, having him come home. She thinks he's too old for it, and it's just a very comical relationship as they go through this video. So here is the trailer for The Truffle Hunters.
Carlo! Carlo!
The dog camera is taking them through the woods. They found a truffle. Now they're smelling the truffles at the competition.
Vieni.
Carlo!
Traive di noi, che faccio penitenza, che tengo il capo a loro, e noi che stiamo senza.
There are a couple moments, just to give you a heads up as you're watching this, to look at the details in the background, because there's this one gentleman, he has a dog named Birba, Birba. Biba is what it sounds like when he says it. And he is so fond of his dog. I'm sitting there going, oh, a man after my own heart. He has a painting of him and his dog in his house. He celebrates the dog's birthday. And it's just so sweet. It's just so sweet. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this week's Petit Plaisir, where each week ideas are shared to make the everyday all the more enjoyable. Tune in at the end of each episode, where I'll recommend a book, a film, a show, a recipe, anything that is a simple pleasure to satiate your sophisticated taste. And so the film, again, is called The Truffle Hunters, in theaters now. And you can look at the detailed post of this Petit Plaisir on its own post, separate from the show notes. Simply go to the simplyluxuriouslife.com/pp308. But it's also linked on the show notes, simplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 308. Now, I've also set up, just as we wrap up here today, I've also set up a separate Instagram account for this podcast. Now, I will always be posting everything that I have been, including stuff about the podcast, on my main Instagram account, The Simply Luxurious Life. But if you just want to have updates for just the podcast, just follow at The Simple Sophisticate Podcast on Instagram, and it will only update you on anything having to do with the podcast. I want to take a quick moment to extend a thank you to a listener from Ireland who earlier this month gave a 5-star review for this show titled Fantastic Podcast. Don't miss this. Incredibly informative and inspiring. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for viewing the show. If you too enjoy the show, feel free to either simply rate or review and share what it is you enjoy about the show so that new listeners will get an idea of what this show is all about. Now, this summer, the podcast takes its summer vacation. I will say that is going to change in season 8, but we are taking a summer break, and a new episode will return during French Week, which is the second full week in August. That's when a new episode of the podcast will return. And then season 8 kicks off officially the first Monday in September. I'll be sharing the season schedule at the end of August. And I'm listening, I'm hearing you. I know you want more episodes. I am looking at my season 8 and doing just that, especially since now I am entirely focused on the blog and the podcast, as I just retired from teaching just last Friday. It was my last day. And I want to thank everyone for your warm support and celebration. I just truly, truly touched by that. I have no idea what that means. It was a lovely last week. We're concluding 20 years of teaching, and I'm so excited to dive into this entire Simply Luxurious brand and business and way of life. Most importantly, way of life with my full attention now. I cannot even tell you how excited I am. So thank you for your patience this summer. I'm diving into editing this summer as well, and finishing up some bathroom remodel, which I'll be sharing with my A Cup of Moments here on July 1st. And August 1st will be even more renovation reveals. So become a top tier subscriber to watch the A Cup of Moments videos and to see home tours if you're interested. I'll provide a link to learning more about that on the show notes. But it's summer. It's a new season. And for those of you in the Northern Hemisphere, it's a new season of winter, snuggling in, cozying in. I hope you all are doing well. And I really want to thank you, most importantly, for choosing to tune in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast. And until August, be sure to stop by the blog for a Monday inspirational post every single Monday, and all of the other regular weekly posts you've come to expect. Bonne journée.